Welcome everybody to AB Live, a branch of Aeon Byte. This is episode 99. Yes, 99 red balloons have gone by, and this is definitely a big red balloon, a big red pill, I would say. My name is Miguel Connor, and I am your Pompadus of Gnosis. So welcome everybody. I see people already going into the chat room. If you're wondering, Vance, our producer, had a last minute work commitment, so he won't be joining us. So it probably means I will only be able to take questions that are super chats, but I will do my best, and I'm sure you guys will behave in the chat room. Take care of each other. But today I'm very excited to be joined here at the Virtual Alexandria, as I call it, by Ola Wolny. Ola, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the invite. I'm really, really excited. And good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Yes, here is good afternoon wherever you are. I guess it won't matter because we are in a construct. So yes, Ola, your ideas, as we talked about, are fascinating. I think there's a lot of innovation to them, and they are definitely very Gnostic and sort of fill in or really explain a lot of the ancient Gnostic ideas in a modern way, certainly in an esoteric way. So love your work and your message and what you're doing. So but first of all, let's talk about your origin story. You're going from a Clark Kent to a Superman. How did you come into these domains of heresy?
Very, very good question. You probably might be surprised because I have a very matrix background. I am an oil and gas engineer by background. So I've worked for over 12, 14 years in the deep matrix, as I call it. So I've studied the engineering. So we kind of have that logical, analytical background very much going on there. And however, I would say that I've had a lifelong affair with the esoteric, with the mysteries, and that's been kind of in the background. However, finally, I think the events of the last 3 years kind of prompted me to come out of the closet properly, from the spiritual closet. And I've spent my life obviously looking a lot at the astrology, numerology, the code, right? I think that it's absolutely critical for us to understand exactly what we're dealing with. And I think that there's been a lot of great work out there, and there's a lot of people who obviously work with astrology. However, I was always lacking something there. I always felt a little bit like something doesn't make sense. And you see, when I think that the problem is that when people study astrology, they literally study off of something that's already out there. So nobody goes back to the basics, or not very many people. Very few people go back to the basics, and even less go back to the ancient texts. So this is kind of my background, which comes from, the fact that I'm an engineer. I need to know everything, 2 + 2 must be 4. And this is how we do things. So I just took that path of sort of going down to the source and taking it from there. And what I found there was, I think, very, very interesting. And well, here I am now, the heretic of astrology, because I'm going against the current. So I'm kind of in a way shunned by the sort of astrology community, because I've been kind of observing and calling out some of the things that I don't really think are the way people sort of see them or promote them. So that's the background, and I'm very, very excited to share some of those things with you.
Awesome. Yes. Let's the Gnostics were the heretics to the heretics. It looks like you are on your way. It's it's a good club to be in. Yeah, and these last few years, a lot of people pivoted, and it's been, yeah, as I call this, the age of Hermes, because the insanity, the simulation seems to be breaking down. People have made their pivots and have just decided, this is my one life, this is my one message. I just got to go for it, and I more or less had the same journey as you. Well, why don't we get to the main event? You said, basically, what is wrong with astrology today, Ola?
I think that the problem is, and it's been obviously steered for centuries. So we have sort of two things going on with astrology. One is it's being ridiculed and it's being laughed at, right? Which is kind of one approach to get people away from it. Like, don't look there because you might find too much. That's one way, and that works. You know, probably 80% of people in the world will take that path. It's ridiculous. It's some kind of black magic or whatnot. You know, stay away from it. It's nonsense. We have free will, right? Everybody wants to think. And then you have the other sort of population, which is into it, which follows it. But this is where the question comes: what are we actually dealing with? So when you come at astrology, I think in the kind of traditional way, usually the path or the explanation is that this is something to do with our development. We are here, there are lessons, we are at school, we're learning. There's a very much evolutionary kind of feel to it. So astrology is very positive. It helps us grow, it helps us kind of evolve into the best version of ourselves. And you know, me being the heretic, like you said, you know, I kind of question that, because I think that when you also get to a certain age, you kind of see that certain events in your life keep repeating themselves, or certain people keep coming in, certain situations keep happening, even though you are perfectly aware of them. You have done the work, you have done the healing, and that continues. So you kind of, you know, find yourself questioning, is the healing not working, or what is going on? What is causing this repetition? Why is it all the time the same stuff? And then you kind of see other people having similar experiences. So this is kind of where I came from. And obviously then we have a lot of the teachings which say that, well, we are those great spirits, right, coming down here. We're part of the God, source, however you want to call it. So if that's the case, why do I have to learn and evolve? Why who's limiting us in the beginning so that later we have to learn and evolve? And you see, we are very much programmed. We're in Kali Yuga, so that's kind of normal, or just stepping out of there. But in Kali Yuga, being the sort of the lowest of the yugas, we are just programmed to believe that the only way to expand is through suffering. The only way to evolve is through suffering, and that's not true. Because when we had the golden age here, when we had the other yugas here, that was not the case. They would be expanding through development, through doing what their potential was about, and that also led to evolution. So why do we need to suffer? That's not a program. Where does it come from? So that was kind of my approach to it. And then I obviously landed, you know, in the origins. So I've been through the Sumerian, the Babylonian texts, the Enuma Elish. I've read the creation myth of the Sumerians. I've been through the Vedas. I've been through the Gnostic texts. Obviously, there's so much in there. And I'm kind of wondering, why isn't anybody connecting the dots with astrology here? It's not even hidden. It's in plain sight. If you have a little bit of astrology background, you really should be able to connect the dots here. And this is where it kind of all came to me, that what we are dealing with here is effectively, this is no school, this is not a mechanism of, you know, evolution. This is more like a prison. And you know, this is more like we're dealing with some kind of code, a cracked code to some kind of construct which we found ourselves in. That is astrology. That for real is astrology. It is the code. It is, and I call it the code to the matrix. And I've done a little bit of work, and I always try to illustrate things and make it, you know, easy to understand. So I've done a little bit of work to kind of show how I see it, which really ties back with the with the cosmology of most of the ancient cultures. So pretty much kind of takes you to wonder, what is it that the ancients were really trying to tell us?
Well said indeed. And yes, I have been arguing that we live in a prison planet, but and the evidence, like you, it hits you in the face. It's like an alcoholic realizing he's an alcoholic, and that's the good news. People go, well, that's terrible. I said, no, that's the good news, because now you see reality. But so you say that what people are practicing today is not real astrology, because you offer astrology services as your in your website, right? Or what's the issue with ancient and modern astrology?
Right. So there's a few things going on here. The way I look at astrology, I don't really offer, you know, astrology per se as a service, because I actually would love for people to understand what cards they've been dealt with. This is what I do. I show you the cards that you've been dealt with. I explain to you what you're dealing with, what you got in store for you from this construct, from this matrix, and this is in your astrology. So in order for us to really lift out of this, you first have to know what you're dealing with. You first have to know what kind of limitations, what kind of talents, what is it that you're dealing with here. And only then, obviously, you can kind of work with it. But ultimately, we should be raising above it. And that's the big question. How do you lift out of it? So this is part of my work. This is what I do. I kind of decode for you what kind of cards you've been dealt with, and what do you do with them, how to best play them, and actually how to try to start moving out of the construct.
And this is through understanding, again, astrology. I mean, yeah, what you said makes perfect sense. The Gnostics and others, even the Hermeticists, wrote about how the stars are what imprison us. They're part of the mechanism that creates our fate, and our fate is always to be trapped in this world, to fall for our base desires, to never really look beyond the stars. And they wrote a lot, from the Valentinians to the Sethians to the Pistis Sophia, about how to break the stars, break the zodiac. I mean, there's one scene in the Pistis Sophia which makes me always really laugh, because Jesus, like some Superman, you know, like in the first Superman movie where he's changing time, he like flies up and he just tilts the zodiac just a few degrees, and that confuses the Archons, but that allows more souls to escape. So basically, the ancients, they knew that these stars were part of the code, and what was their takes? Let's talk about, let's say, the first real star map drawers, the Babylonians. What insights did you find from their work and their myths?
Well, first of all, if I may, if you think about the cosmology of pretty much every single culture, from the Incas through the Norse mythology, where obviously I'm here in the Arctic, the Maya, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, Babylonians, Vedas, everyone's cosmology was showing pretty much similar picture of something that we now interpret in the kind of mainstream narrative. We interpret that as a flat Earth. Whether that's a flat Earth or not, I don't think we need to kind of go into that discussion. That's a kind of a bit different discussion. However, overall, the picture is there's some kind of land, and over that land we have a firmament. So this is where the flat Earth came from, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that the right interpretation? Is that what they were really trying to tell us? And when you look at the texts such as Piscis Sophia or even the Codex Hermeticum, right? Both of them, and there is obviously a lot of similarities there. Even if you throw in the Emerald Tablets, which talks a little bit, it kind of goes down instead of up, but still everything here is talking about the same structure, the same construct, which is ultimately firmament above with some kind of spheres, some kind of levels, which what do we do with it? How to understand it? Well, you know, me as an engineer working those texts out, the way I see it, including the Enuma Elish interpretation of the creation myth, to me, we are in a construct of some kind of other civilization that was here, someone that came here, right? Which is goes by the name Anunnaki or however you call them, Archons. Ultimately, Archons, they are using us. They are utilizing our energy, and by use of very advanced technology. This is how I see it. Very advanced technology. They have managed to set some kind of construct above the space that we're in. I think it's almost like a biocapsule type of thing where we are in a closed environment. The firmament above us, above which we have the technology. And that technology, literally some kind of artificial intelligence, whatever, is probably technology, you know, thousands years ahead of us, which no point even going into how it works. However, it's very clear from the Gnostic texts that the planets have been fashioned, so they've been sort of grasped into that kind of net. They've been given certain powers. And ultimately, those powers are exerted upon Earth. How? Well, this is where the mind control comes in, right? I mean, it's called mind control for a reason. Right. We also have chakras. What are the chakras for real? Are we, you know, have we been implanted with some kind of receivers to this technology? Because obviously, it's very clear in Hermetica, in Piscis Sophia, that and Jesus says that in Piscis Sophia, that there is no escape from fate, right? There's no escape from destiny, which means that ultimately, until you know what's going on, you will be under the influence of that mechanism. So how is it communicating? How is it working? Well, probably it is working through that technology, which is somehow connecting to us. And it's literally what we think is a free will is not so free, right? It's more like the result of some predestined codes. Mm-hmm. So here we are acting out. And mind you, I don't want to sort of make it so fatalistic and so so bad. I don't think that everything is predestined because we are divine. So ultimately, we do have a connection with the source or something greater than this construct. This is why they are using us for energy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to suck the energy out of us because we wouldn't have it. So the question is, they are trying ultimately to make it impossible for us to connect to that divine spark. That's why we have all this control. And this is also how they take the energy out of us. And I always say that, you know, they kind of use two different routes for that. One of them being the passive one, which is the Zodiac. So kind of steering your life, giving you the traumas in the childhood. So then you spend 40 or 50 years of your life stuck and acting out, you know, the unconsciously all those traumas and having all those kind of issues. And the active one, which is what we've seen, for example, over the last 3 years, meaning the fear campaign and all the false flags, etc., so that they just kind of navigate their agenda while we are steered into certain responses, certain behaviors, certain emotions. This is where I kind of arrived with this. And why am I talking about them taking our energy? Well, you see, you've obviously heard about the Anunnaki, the story of the Anunnaki coming here to mine for gold, right?
Yeah. That's the story.
That's the story. So you see, so I question that story, because I don't believe for a moment that a highly advanced civilization is, whether it's flying or coming through some portals or however, is coming here to this plane, and they need slaves to mine for their gold. It doesn't make any sense. If you have such advanced technology to even arrive here,
Use
then
machine,
then get on with it. You know,
like they're Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh, I'm just coming for gold, and I need slaves. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have such advanced technology, then use it for that. So why do you need human? And then we have to remember that these texts, they've been written thousands of years ago. They have been tampered with, they've been played with, they've been changed. And on top of that, we're dealing with translations. So could it be that the texts have been mistranslated into gold from the original? What is gold in Latin? Aurum.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Aurum, aurum, however you want to pronounce that. How close to aura, the energy field? So was it originally aura that was meant, not aurum, gold, as the metal? So perhaps the real meaning is, and this is what I'm advocating, they came for gold, which is aura, which is the energy. So they came to mine for energy, right? So they had to create some construct to be able to do it. And this is what they've done. The whole matrix construct, the firmament, what's above the firmament, and the constellations, specifically in Pistis Sophia, we have the Fate at the second sphere, we have the Aeons, which are corresponding to the 12 zodiac signs. So we have the 12 constellations. We have the planets that have been also caught in this net, so that their movements are ultimately steering this whole mechanism. And the effect is imparted upon us. This is the way that they are literally generating those emotions, those reactions, and sucking it sort of out of us. This is kind of where I arrived with this concept.
No, it makes perfect sense. They are even we talked before the interview how your ideas of the code very much parallel the Pistis Sophia and the Secret Book of John, the idea of the counterfeit spirit. It's this programming that gets put in us before we are born, as our spark falls into matter, and all our dooms and everything is sort of programmed into us. It's inside and outside. It's, again, this is good news. How bad it is, it's bad, but that's the good news.
And totally. And I think it's pretty clear specifically in Pistis Sophia. This is like a handbook for for this. It's amazing. It's so clearly described that so you kind of you have two things going on here, right? You have souls that are already trapped here. And if those souls, and even Mary Magdalena, she talks about it, if you do not resurrect in life after death, forget it. It's too late. It's too late. It's not going to happen. So what does that mean? If you don't awaken, if you do not become initiated into the mysteries, right, of ultimately how to die so that you do not end up on the reincarnation cycle, which is clearly described both in the Hermetic text and in Pistis Sophia. If you come back, if you die and you go to the light, you come back on the reincarnation cycle, on the reincarnation loop, which throws you back on Earth. So this is that kind of loop that works under the firmament, if you like. So this is part of the working of this construct. Or some other souls, and this is what Jesus explains, right? They kind of are able to come from the outside, and they know how to get out of here. So this is where we are. This is how it works. If you don't know how to get out of here, you will reincarnate back down here. This is what the I think it's in the Hermetic text. It's said that you will be tossed between heaven and earth forever. Good perspective, right?
But again, yes, in eternal forgetfulness and all that. So basically, yes, I love what you're creating or what you're understanding. They're these entities, Archons, Anunnaki. Sometimes I call them cosmic programmers because they're not very sophisticated. They're just in charge. And then these other forces from beyond, Sophia, Jesus, Simon Magus, come and give us information, like Morpheus, hey, wake up, here's the red pill. Here's what do you feel that the elite or those in power in this earth know this secret and are working with these forces? Because there's a saying I always say, millionaires don't practice astrology, billionaires practice astrology, because they know that these rituals, whether it's 9/11 or rockets in the sky or secret societies, give them power, or at least they can honor these beings, if you will.
Yeah, right. I mean, absolutely. There's no question about it. They know exactly what they're doing. I specifically went into the Babylonian astrology when I've noticed that the elites with the entertainment they served us over the past 3 years, they specifically followed some of the omens and some of the it was specifically from Babylonian astrology. Babylonian astrology is the as I call it, this is the astrology of the elites. So if you really want to know what's coming, what they are planning, this is the astrology to follow. Not the Western, because the Western is using the tropical zodiac, which is stuck 2,000 years ago. It's not moving. It's not accounting for precession of equinoxes.
So it's outdated.
Most of the sad thing is that unfortunately a lot of the tropical astrologers, they don't even know that this is the case, because they don't kind of understand the mathematics behind it. So they just kind of go along with what it means, what each sign means, and this is where we are. And then there's this explanation of it goes by seasons and not by constellations. What seasons? It's a zodiac that got frozen 2,000 years ago. So obviously we're talking about the Babylonian or the Vedic. It's the same principle, which is the ancient. This is the original, and it is accounting for precession of equinoxes. I mean, this is why we're talking about Age of Aquarius, right? Because of the precession of equinoxes. So here we are. And just like you say, the elites absolutely know it. And the last 3 years, a perfect example of that, with the idea of the pandemic, because it was specifically the energy in the ether, if you like, was very, very supportive towards that, which means that you didn't have to have any real pandemic, you didn't have to have any real crisis around that for people to buy into that. And that's what happened, right? And now the next cycle that we are in is to do with, well, this is actually specifically, we're talking about Mars and Scorpio, Mars, heliacal rising of Mars in Scorpio, which is to do with hostilities, wars. And here we are being presented with the idea that we have conflicts, right, in the world. And everybody's buying into that because that's the energy supportive of that kind of narrative. So they know exactly what's coming. They know exactly what you see. And mind you, this monkeypox nonsense, right? What happened to that? Where's the marketing team for that? It's not supported. It's not supported anymore. It's not supported anymore. That's why it failed. There is no energy to support it anymore. So they had to move alongside with those cycles. They had to move into a new narrative, which is what we have now. So very absolutely clear that they are aware of it. and they are using it. However, the good news, okay, is that, the good news is that the reason why, in my view, okay, I'll tell you what I think. The reason why they're getting desperate, and there's a lot of things that are going on that are looking really, really scary, is because we kind of have three things going on right now. This is actually a really, really special time, and the Age of Aquarius is only a part of it. We have the end of Kali Yuga. We are leaving Kali Yuga right now. That coincides with the beginning of the Age of Aquarius. That energy is already upon us. And the third thing, and this is absolutely beautiful. The third thing is the fact that due to the precession of equinoxes, we have come to a point where at the winter, the sort of 21st of December, so more or less at the solstice, but it kind of starts a little bit earlier. At that very, very special time, we have an alignment with the galactic center. Our sun has the alignment with the galactic center. The sun is a portal. So massive, original, beautiful energies of the original design for this space are coming in, and they are activating people, and they are also working with the energy of the planets and this planet specifically. So there's a lot of energy. So we're talking about convergence of three massive cycles here, and they know about it. And they fear it because, you see, that they cannot do anything against it. They cannot fight against it. So what are they trying to do? They are trying with all their ideas to kind of utilize that energy for their purposes. But you see, you have people waking up, and you have people not buying it. And I'm sorry, there will not be mass awakening, but there will be enough. But there will be enough people. The cycles are the cycles. They will happen. So that's the good news.
Yeah, good news. And this is this year, or
it's ongoing. This is not like specifically bound to a year, because obviously the precession of equinoxes, it's very, very slow. So
Right.
we are in those bounds. We've been there for a decade. You see, when we're talking about the end of the world by the Mayans, right? 2012. That happens to kind of coincide with the Kali Yuga, end of Kali Yuga, around that time. So probably they've been talking really effectively about the end of that era. Around the same time, we have this going on. So this is not a sort of distinct event, like 1 year and that's it. This is an ongoing energy. However, we are already in it, and they know it, and this is why they have an agenda for it, right? But I think the more people find out and sort of do what they have to do, what's your mission, what is it that you feel you came here for, this is the way to do it. And by the way, Age of Aquarius, it's not a man. The Aquarius is and from Pistis Sophia, right? And from the other Gnostic texts. This is the lady with the anointment jar.
It is, yes, that is true. Good point. Yeah, love what you're saying. And yeah, as I often say in the show, this may not be the best time to be alive, but it's the best time to be awake. There are energies, and if you wake up, you'll finally break the cycle. Not just the cycle with your relationships and parents and job, which we're all trying, but bigger cycles where we'll experience freedom and ecstasy and bliss and all these, and help others, find ways to help others wake up. So it's a hard time, but it's an exciting time. For the audience, again, Vance had a last minute work. He had to deal with his Archons and his fate. So no questions unless you super chatted, but everybody, there's about 100 people in the chat and everybody's behaving. So good job, Ola. They're paying attention to you instead of sometimes they'll get into an argument about something and infighting. So life is good. But what I wanted to ask, and I think these all your ideas are intriguing, but this one really got me because it answered so much. There's a mystic called Gurdjieff, and he came up. He one time said, "We are food for the moon." And nobody figured it out. I've had guests who've written biographies who said, "What is it?" He's like, "I don't know. It doesn't make sense." He just said one time, "We are the food of the moon." But your ideas on the moon being the fake Venus are really amazing. Could you share the audience, share with the
Yeah,
audience about this?
absolutely. So back to Enuma Elish. One of the texts which I think pretty clearly states that the moon is a fake construct. It's not real. Even if you sort of take the science out of it, right? Because the science itself doesn't make sense. Like, how is it possible that something that's supposedly natural is absolutely the same size as the sun, sort of given the distances, and then we have the eclipse, which is perfect, and it's just a lot of things which clearly show that something is off here. You cannot have a natural phenomena where it's so perfectly synchronized with the movement of the earth, etc., that we never get to see what's on the other side. I mean, nothing makes sense here. So in the ancient texts, it's pretty clearly stated that this is a fake construct. It's been placed in place by the Archons. As they were fashioning the whole construct, the whole matrix construct, as I call it. And you see, back and this is where we kind of going back to the better days, to perhaps the golden age, or closer to the times before the Archons came and took control here. It's pretty clear that back in the day, back in previous eras, it was Venus that was followed. And Venus also holds that's the whole story of Pistis Sophia. You see her being sort of just under the 13th aeon, but not of the other aeons. What does it mean? Well, it means that where the Archons came and they tried to create this construct, and they tried to grab the planets to serve them as a part of this construct, and to kind of give them certain powers so that they work as part of that system. Venus, they were not able to do that with her. They were not able to force Venus to kind of work for them. Venus is the twin sister of Earth, and she continued to, they were trying, this is where we get this whole chasing and trying to intimidate Pistis Sophia in the eons. This is literally a parallel to the Archons trying to catch Venus and kind of get her to work for this matrix, but she does not do that. And again, what is Venus, and what is why Venus and the feminine? Here is back to the feminine, and here is back to the Aquarius, and now the era of Aquarius. So why Venus? Venus held mysteries of how to die, to get out of here. And all these cultures before us, they were following Venus. They knew exactly. You have the Mayans following Venus. You have all the cultures following Venus. It's very, very clear. What later became the worship of the moon was originally worship of Venus. Maybe not worship is not a good name. However, that's where it came from. So Matrix knew, or the Archons knew, that Venus holds these mysteries, and that was literally written in her movements. Her movements are very, very specific around the sun. There's a lot of wisdom that you can, if you know how to decode it. There's a lot of information when Venus goes into retrograde, and there's a very specific period that she goes into retrograde for, the 40 days, which are very often mentioned in the Bible, right? The 40 here, 40 there. So when she goes into retrograde, or even whenever she actually starts approaching the sun, she becomes invisible. What is that? This is the parallel to the descent to the underworld, Inanna's descent to the underworld. The mystery of that. What does that mean? What is that about? This is what they changed, the story that they changed so much. The current version of Inanna's descent to the underworld is not what it was before. So Venus held in her movements and in her wisdom the pistis Sophia. I mean, that is the parallel to Venus, right? She holds she holds the mysteries of life and death. And the Archons knew that. And on top of that, they couldn't control her. They tried, but they couldn't. They caught her in a net. So ultimately, she was caught in the net. That's why in Pistis Sophia, this is explained as Sophia has been sort of under the 13th aeon, right? She's kind of not of the 12, but she's not in her original place either. So what they knew is that they couldn't control it. The only thing that they could do is that they could replace it. They could try to shift the attention from where it originally was to something else that was working for them. And this is where the moon comes. So the moon gets created. And you see, obviously now probably I will piss off a lot of women who are perhaps very connected to the moon, and they think that these are the moon mysteries and all the...
the witches dancing under the moon.
Exactly. And I'm here to tell you, it was never the moon that the witches, the true ones, witches, meaning the wise women, that's not what they were ever worshipping. It was never the moon.
The counterfeit Venus. It's a construct.
It's absolutely so the fact that for example our the feminine cycle, right, it's kind of the 13, the number 13 coming up all the time. Well, the number 13 actually comes from Venus, and the fact that a woman has 13 cycles in a year, and every month, right, she has her cycle. I mean, think about it even from a logical point of view. When you look at nature, what other animals, even looking at nature, is there any animal who is able to produce more slaves? Let's call it what it is. 12 times a year. I'm sorry, but this is what they want. This is what they want, and this is not nature. This is the construct. With animals, it's much easier because when they are in heat, this is when they can obviously have, they can get pregnant. But with women, it's the opposite. Everything is inverted, right? Very different and very difficult. So what does it do? It makes women uncomfortable. It makes women scared. It takes away all the pleasure and all the magic because women don't know what's going to happen. So you see why this beautiful mystery has been rid of all these beautiful aspects. Is that nature? This is not nature. And this is connected to the moon. You see, very often in the artwork back from the day, you will see the horns, right? And the horns or the sort of crescent moons, and they will say, oh, this is the crescent moons because those goddesses from back then, they were worshipping the moon. They were not worshipping the moon. The crescent moons, as we call them now because we think it's the moon, that was Venus. Venus has phases. Venus has phases. So the fact that moon has phases comes from the fact that Venus has phases. Venus is the one that you can actually see as the crescent moon as she moves around the sun and as she dances with the earth. So the whole idea of phases comes from Venus. People don't know that. This is the same. So those crescent moons are not moons. This is Venus.
Wow. Did you hear that? No more howling at the moon. No more barking at the moon. No more.
Well, you see, that's interesting because the howling to the moon, very good, because we think that when the wolves howl to the moon is such a great thing because it's the full moon. In the witches' tradition, the wise women, and this is kind of wisdom that's still repeated amongst women, especially the older one, if they kind of still know this oral tradition. They say that whenever the wolves howl at the moon, it's to scare it away because they know that the moon steals the soul.
Wow, that makes sense. Yeah,
So
like for Saint Gurdjieff. Yeah, it's
yeah,
eating, it's
yeah,
devouring. Oh,
absolutely, absolutely. And even in PC Sophia, right, the moon is mentioned as part of the matrix mechanism, part of the, and specifically, where is it present? For reincarnation. This is the part of the reincarnation machine.
no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and the other thing too, I had talking to a friend, and he did some research, and I remember him telling him, and I did this research of comparative mythology, and most deities associated with the moon are male, and I'm like, but that makes no sense. The moon is so feminine, but the reality is the ancients knew it was part of the whatever the male force, the oppressive male force. So basically, there was a time where women could basically regulate their fertility at will. It's a sync because I was looking at a show with a guest, Marguerite Rigalioso, and she's done this research how not only was there an ancient time where women could control their fertility, but they could actually conceive. There are
Absolutely.
and they could conceive these god men or these great messiahs, and they lived in the temple and just meditated 24/7 and ate well, and they would bring out these heroes. And Jesus might have been one of these heroes that Mary brought out because they're very enlightened, they're very powerful, they don't have the effects of fate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about. And even up to the 70s, especially in the indigenous cultures, in the sort of the ones that were always living a little bit closer to the nature, away from the matrix,
Right.
women could still regulate their cycles. So they were still able to control it. And now, unfortunately, there is just too much of the technology above us that it's very, very hard for women to be able to steer away from it. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very important as a first step to understand that unfortunately there is nothing good about connecting to the moon, paying any attention to the moon. Not great. I do not follow any full moons, etc., which most astrologers do. I don't. There's nothing good about it. This is part of the matrix construct. If you pay attention to it, you're feeding it. So you're giving it what it wants. It wanted your attention. It has your attention. And you don't even know about Venus. So here it is. And Venus holds the mysteries of how to get out of here.
Yeah, very true. Follow Venus, guys and ladies. So it's interesting because in the Bible, when Eve gets punished by the demiurge, you're gonna have cramps and periods are gonna be painful. So basically, what he did, he didn't really curse her; he just built the moon to punish Eve.
I mean, ultimately, right? That's another story. It's absolutely, it's part of the. It's another big story because of the whole feminine, right? What happened with the feminine? Why did the Archons went after feminine? And then you kind of go back to the story of Inanna and Enki, right? She and her powers. She had those powers which are explained in the story of Inanna, and Enki took them away. And mind you, the story is written by the victors, not by the losers, right? So we have to always take those stories with a pinch of salt because they've been already tampered with. And so what does it really mean? It means that we have the male gods, we have the patriarchy coming in, taking away something that belongs to women. There are feminine mysteries that are being taken away, and the men are trying to overtake them trying to practice them. They cannot practice them because, some things can be unfortunately done only by women. The inversion, look at the inversion going on today. Look what's happening, right? I mean, look as this agenda is progressing. Why? Because they know that the age of Aquarius is the age of women remembering their mysteries. Women remembering, I don't want to say power, because do not ever associate that with the feminists, because that is a controlled movement. I'm talking the real deal. I'm talking the ancient mysteries. Even the Cathars, they said when the last sort of the Cathar leaders was burnt at stake, he said that in 808 years, the Cathars will start to sort of being reborn again. Those back then will be coming back now. The time is now. They are already amongst us. So, and they know the mysteries. They already know the mysteries from back those times, right? So those mysteries are coming back, and the elites, they know about it.
They know.
So, the Twin Towers you mentioned before, right? The 9/11. So the 9/11 were two towers, and of course it was more objects that were bombed, right?
Yeah.
At the time. So, but the Twin Towers, and you always have to look. We have to go and look past the money, past the politics. It was never about that. These people are doing occult rituals here. So the two towers, the Twin Towers, if you look at the tarot, the two towers is the priestess card, right? The priestess is the lady sitting between two sort of pillars. These are the two towers. And the priestess in the tarot is the Piscis Sophia. This is a ritual. Everything that's happening. And then we have in France, Notre Dame, right? Taking down of the Notre Dame. What's Notre Dame? Our Lady.
Our Lady. Back
to Mary Magdalene. They know exactly who's coming back here and what is coming back. And they're trying to maybe not prevent it, but there's a lot of occult things going on, which is playing and tampering with the energy, trying to maybe detour things, they cannot stop it, but they are trying to start to control it. You see the agenda of literally gender inversion. What's going on right now? Men becoming female, right? Feminine, etc. Not to mention that we get now. I'm sorry if I'm politically incorrect here. You will have to maybe take it down. But I just have to tell the truth, because this is why it's happening.
Yes, indeed. What was it? You were talking about the mysteries. Yeah, I keep going back, and something I've mentioned a lot is that you find it in the primordial myth, and you've talked about it, the Babylonian, where Tiamat is the great mother. She is nature. She is chaos. She is magic. And here comes Marduk and kills her and controls her. The world is created through her bones. And so Marduk is, of course, the great symbol of the left brain, the complete logical mechanistic brain. And that's what's ruled the world. And we need Tiamat to sort of rise again and sort of stop this construct, because even if some have said the God of the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament, he is actually more closer to Marduk than the original tribal god Yahweh. He is they during when the Hebrews or the Jews were in the Babylonian captivity, they sort of slid in Marduk, because for civilization and power, he's the god you want behind you, not some desert god or something like that. So it's interesting about Marduk, chaos, and the divine feminine.
Yeah, and obviously you have the echo of, or not an echo, but the key kind of theme of that in every mythology. You have in the Vedas, you have the gods versus the asuras. Who are the asuras, right? Always somebody's the bad guy. You have the giants and the gods in the Norse. You have the same in the Babylonian. You have the Tiamat, like you say, and Enki and Marduk, etc. This is the fall of the feminine. This is the fall of women. This is
And
the
nature,
patriarchy.
I think nature.
Yeah,
Women
yeah.
are connected to nature. That's
Absolutely, and you see, this is what ultimately we're talking about here is, and you will find it everywhere in the Kabbalah, in Enuma Elish. Even when they try to change the myths, they cannot change the original meaning, because they probably sometimes don't even know it. But where it comes back to is that the original keeper of these kind of mysteries of creation is a woman. A woman is the one who creates. She has the portal. Look at the galactic, at the galactic level, right? We have a black hole. From the black hole, the matter is born. From a woman, a child is born. Not only a child, a woman is able to give birth to a lot of things, but we have been controlled by this construct, and those powers have been restricted instead of taken down only to creating children. To a very high extent, women are not even aware of what else they could be creating. So this is what originally started back then with this. It wasn't even a war. It was just the masculine that decided that they do not need the feminine, right? So the men decided they do not need the women. They will be subservient. So they took that power. Then we had the patriarchy. But this current era, Aquarius, this is the return of that feminine, and this is not any war between men and women. Absolutely not. But this is the return of that original feminine wisdom, of the feminine mysteries, which can bring us back to balance here. This is what they are trying to prevent.
very much so, and I would agree. I agree with you. And what are your views on your research on Sophia and Mary Magdalene? What do you think of these two Gnostic heroines? You've talked a lot about Sophia and, being Venus and all that, but tell us more.
Well, ultimately, whether we call it Venus, Aphrodite, Sophia, or absolutely Inanna, Isis, Mary Magdalena, we're really dealing with the same theme all the time, the same theme, and it's really, really repetitive, right? It's the same message. So this is, I think, mind you, all these texts were, again, they were written in the times of the patriarchy, so they could not really pass on the original, the proper, the true teachings. They had to kind of pack them up a little bit in that patriarchal narrative. So that's why they keep saying, for those with the eyes to see and for those with the ears to hear, because you almost have to have the key to unlock it, to be able to read those texts, to actually understand them. So Mary Magdalena, PC Sophia, absolutely, this is ultimately the symbology of that feminine. It's not like those two or the one of them was very special. It is, every single one of us have that potential. But I think that, the fact that that same motive was being repeated in all these geographies, it is to teach people, it is to pass certain wisdom to people of specifically those mysteries.
Yeah, well said. And again, as you said earlier, in the Gnostic text from the Gospel of Philip, Gospel of Thomas, the resurrection happens now. You must be Christ in this world, or else back in the game, back in the forgetfulness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wanted to share with the audience this picture you made me. Now I look at the moon.
Yeah, and this is so you see, this is kind of illustration that I try to make to show what I mean in terms of where we are. So we have the earth, and above us we have the firmament. And we have this construct. I don't want to focus on specifically the firmament so much, but we have some kind of construct. Part of that construct are the constellations, so the zodiac, the planets, and some kind of technology, because obviously there is some kind of technology which is organizing the whole thing. So when you're coming in from the outside or from the inside for that matter, you are being screened as in your barcode is being read by the controllers, right? So they know who's coming, they know why you're coming, or if you are just coming as the reincarnation from Earth, they just read, okay, well, what have you done? They're gonna convince you that either if you are from the West, you had some sins, or if you are from the East, you have some karma. So off you go back down, and you're gonna be repaying that, right? I mean, this is as simple as that. And astrology is literally the code that lets us to understand or see into what the controllers see, so we can decode what is it that we are given, what is it that we are, what kind of cards we are dealt, so that we know what we're working with. And this is the first step, I think, for us to kind of rise above it, so that, you know, if all those lessons, all these karmic lessons, etc., I mean, please do not go into that. I mean, you gotta know what they are, but do not engage. That is what I'm gonna say. You know, there is no learning there. The learning will never be over. You can heal yourself to death, but those lessons will continue, because they do not come from unhealed part of you. They come from the matrix. Know what they are. Do not engage in those things, but you need to know what they are first, right? Go into your talents, go into your passions, because that is that part that comes from the soul. It is also written in your chart. You can find what that is. Go that way, because that way you actually are getting the support of the universe. You are being supported, you're being guided. But when you start going into those lessons, they never end. They never end. There is no glory in that.
Oh, well said. Yeah, because individuals are probably wondering, well, what do I do? Obviously, the truth will set you free, as Jesus says in the Gospel of John. Like I said, when I finally accepted I was an alcoholic, my life got 100 times, you know what I mean? Solutions came, and I knew what to do, and I knew where to pivot. So I always think it's the best news I ever had or admitted. But what other advice do you have for people? I always tell people, go inward. If you start meditating and contemplating, and whether you find these insights in tarot, everything, in time you'll realize what part of you is false and what part of you is true. It'll take time, and you realize, man, I really am a construct. I am so programmed.
I mean, I think it's for me it's like you say, we are programmed. So we need to know what is the program, and the program will never be positive. The program will never be the uplifting part of you. You know, it will never be the one that really gives you. I mean, it's not going to be the positive side of things. It's going to be always something that holds you back, that controls you, that makes you feel bad, that you know, makes you have those negative thoughts of you, of yourself. And of course, you know, you can sort of take that approach that, the therapist will say that I have something to work with. Well, how long do you want to work with it, you know? Or is it just at some point you're gonna get to understanding, okay, what it is? Do not engage. Do not engage. Do not get triggered. Of course, get that understanding. If you want to do that through meditation, great. If you want to do it through a astrology reading or numerology reading, fine. You will also get that kind of picture. But ultimately, you know, just understand that all this is part of a construct. You are not. There's nothing wrong with us inherently. There is nothing wrong. We have been programmed. We have been given certain limitations. We have been given certain traumas on purpose, so that you will focus on that rather than on finding who you are and stepping into that power. This is the whole point, because they know who we are. They know we have that power. So they have to keep us occupied with the nonsense, right? So that we will never step into that.
Yeah, there was a story I read yesterday on the internet. Somebody had an experiment that if you get a jar and you put red and black ants in a jar, they just crawl around. They don't do anything. But if a human comes and shakes it, they start fighting each other. I'm like,
Right.
Well, that's humanity, the divide and conquer that they do. It's
Yeah,
one of their great tricks,
sure.
Republican versus Democrat
Yeah.
and Muslim versus
Yeah.
Christian, all that. So it's
I mean, all that, and this is back to what I said at the beginning. All that, I just call it part of this active control or active energy stealing, because they need to keep us busy with something, right? So they keep us busy with going to work 9 to 5. They keep us busy with, and you need to do it because you have to pay your mortgage. So they give us this game of, you have to pay this, have to pay that, and then they're gonna like you say, they're gonna create all this nonsense, absolutely untrue concepts of people going at each other, people hating each other. I mean, none of it is original. None of it is what we are truly inside. This is something that's been put onto us. Everything is part of the construct. So absolutely, the key is to understand it. Understand that none of it is real. Wars, none of it is real.
No, wars are based on mythologies, as Neil Gaiman said. What about the idea? And I talked too a lot on the show again the last few years about fear is the mind killer. One of the first things you need to do is don't attack a problem, or attack the fear first. Then the problem not really a problem, and there's just solutions. What has worked for you with dealing with fear, Ola? Like changing your life recently, or you seem very happy being a heretic among heretics. You're not, unless you're shaking underneath in your.
No. Well, I hope I'm not. It doesn't look like I'm shaking here, but
No, I'm just saying. How do you deal with fear when fear comes?
I mean, fear is normal because we can obviously talk about the truth and sort of have this conversation, and everything is so clear, but then you still have bills to pay, and you still need to eat and look after your family, and that's normal. That's normal. But just understand that this is what they want. This is what they hope for. What's happening right now? The reason I think why I can manage my fear is because I really know I have evidence for the fact that there's something bigger going on here. There are prophecies supporting that. There are some cycles that are ending that we know about. We know about. The texts are talking about the same thing. So there is nothing here that's unexpected to an extent. And I think that if you find yourself living right now and you are to this extent awakened, you know what's going on, then there is a reason for that. And I honestly, strongly believe, because these prophecies, they will fulfill themselves. They really do, because we need certain things need to happen here. There needs to be a cleansing. We need to get a move on with sort of where we are, where we're heading. But I would say that people who are awakened are part of that. So do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, because there is something greater that's at work here. You are part of it. You're here for a reason. So I would say, as a first step, understand the limitation, understand in what way the matrix is trying to keep you small, so that you can start lifting out of it. And honestly, I think, and this is obviously the texts are also talking about it a lot, this is the detachment. What does it mean? I will never tell you about any convoluted concepts here. What does it mean, detachment? Ultimately, it means to me, the consumerism, the materialism, people who cannot live without the material things, people who get so attached to ownership, people who get so attached to things that they have. We have to be flexible. It is going to be a bit of a nomads and the gypsy type of lifestyle probably coming our way. If you cannot accept it, if you are so tied to the beautiful house and beautiful car, it's going to be very, very hard for us. But this is where the spirituality comes. We are so much more than those things. And even the piece Sophia specifically talks about that, right? So I mean, maybe this is not exactly what people want to hear, but I think that this is how we can at least keep our mental health at check.
Beautifully said. And yes, the truth will set you free. As we get towards the end of the interview, are there any movies? Do you watch movies? Any movies that you say, this movie really fits my ideas, or this is a great movie? It's always a good point for that.
Ultimately, as boring as it's gonna sound, I'm not really a big movie person. However, obviously there's a lot of people that would say that The Matrix is a documentary, it's not a movie, and I would agree to an extent. I think that what we are dealing with here in this reality is a blend of The Matrix with Avatar. Avatar being ultimately that kind of movie which shows our true nature, not the humans, the blue ones. It kind of this is what we are at that deep level. We were here originally. We were not made up by the Anunnaki. We were here as the human race. Of course, people can, as the spirit, can travel and can incarnate in different places. However, from what I have established, we were here before. We were connected to the planet. Very much that concept, it's that the movies are never accidental, right? They are trying to tell a story here. And then we have been invaded. And then the Matrix takes over, the movie Matrix, right? So then you know what they've done here. And when they say it's an illusion, I wouldn't say that this is an illusion in the sense that nothing here is real. We are not real. We don't exist. No, we do exist. But what they serve us, the reality to which they try to convince us, that is not real. That is their reality. That is not our reality. Do not buy into that. This is why I say we have to wake up from it and we have to start creating. So not living under the Matrix.
Really well said. Yeah, for you guys out there, you modern heretics, there's that meme of old man yelling at the clouds. Everybody tonight, go and shake your fist at the moon. Let's expose it for what it is once and for all and see what the moon does. I thank you, Brian Burmer, for your super chat. Enjoyed it. You guys, on the corner of my eye, as always, you had some very intelligent discussions, and a lot of compliments for you, Ola.
Oh,
and for everybody, this is your website, and let us know what they can expect if they reach out and talk to you.
If you reach out,
barking at the moon, right?
Absolutely. And you see, this is my favorite quote. There is no greater victory than to fall from this world a free man.
Love it.
So this is how we escape the Zodiac. This is about escaping the Zodiac. This is about potentially, I would say, taking this construct down. I really think that part of this generation's job is to take this construct down. And what I can offer is I help people to understand in what way Matrix has been controlling you, in what way what your code contains, so that we can sort of work around stopping to be controlled by it and move into your creation and what it is that you are ultimately here to do. What is your piece of the puzzle for this time here? Because you see, the people that come to me, and I use the ancient astrology. I use some of the techniques that are specifically coming from the day. You actually are able to tell whether the soul is sort of here on a special task, on a special mission. Souls that are very advanced, souls that clearly came here not through the earthly reincarnation cycle, but they came here from outside. And honestly, I think that probably 80-90% of people that come to me, because I'm not for everybody, 80-90% of people are people that are here on a job.
On a mission.
Hmm.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Well, awesome. Well, for the audience, I will have on the show notes, I'll have her website, Self Mastery Quest, and I'll have it, of course, in the for the audio version, which should be out in a probably tomorrow. I'll get to it, but of course, the show will be available on YouTube. I will put it on Rockfin and Odyssey. Those places, Ola, where the algorithm isn't so bad, and you can still save your stuff, because in this day and age, things get censored pretty fast. But so far, YouTube has spared me with only a few strikes and suspensions and all that. It's kept things going, and so I will keep going. So awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming. And Ola, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really love your ideas. I love your research, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for being with us.
Thank you. And as I always say, write your own gospel, live your own myth, and everybody have a good rest of your week. And don't forget to go shake your fist at the moon tonight. Take care, everybody.
Wonderful. Good night, everybody.